Okay, so I think we will start. So thanks you for joining. Welcome everyone. This is the fourth webcast of our web series around how blockchain can foster reliable and sustainable supply chain. After product traceability and transparency and accountability between actors, we will focus today on another key supply chain use case, which is the procure-to-pay process. And we will dig down into how blockchain can enable to de-risk and automate this process. And next week, we will end this series with the last webcast that will focus around IoT within the supply chain and around how blockchain can enable to secure IoT devices. So now let's focus on procure-to-pay with our expert Manuel Sevilla. Just one last comment, as this is a global webcast, you are not able to speak, but you can post all your questions during this webcast directly on the Q&A panel, and we will keep a few minutes at the end of the webcast to answer these questions. Thanks a lot, Manuel. The floor is yours.
Adrien, thanks for the introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Manuel Sevilla. I am the Chief Digital Officer of Capgemini Business Services. So I know that most of you don't know business services, even for people within Capgemini. So it's interesting to know that Capgemini is not only about IT and consulting, but we also have a team dedicated to deliver business processes to our customers. So business processes is typically delivering finance and accounting processes, like doing the financial closure, treasury management, order to cash, and also, of course, procure to pay. But also we do a lot of HR things, especially in talent management, talent recruitment, and in learning and development. And we help a lot also in supply chain management, especially around the planning and the logistics, and some other activities, typically in the GRC area and in compliance, and in all the contract management. So it's about 25,000 people within Capgemini who are doing that, mainly based in nearshore places, so India, Poland, and Guatemala. You can see many customers everywhere. We are global customers. And so the case I will tell you is based not only on a key process that we know very well, which is P2P, but also for a customer that is a joint customer from both Capgemini BSV and Capgemini applications. So before I speak about P2P, one slide only on blockchain, because maybe some of you are not on the previous series. And I just want to summarize the mindset of blockchain with 5 big topics. The first one is mainly the first strength of the blockchain, which is the ledger that is immutable, which means we have the ability to write, but not to remove or change data. So this is why we're recreating there a source of trust, and of course, a real transparent topic, because we cannot hide what we're doing. So that's very clear. So it was a complete auditability. The second one is all the security. So security, especially in the ability to resist to the threats. And as you know, Bitcoin is here for about 10 years, and no one found a way to hack Bitcoin. A lot of people found a way to hack companies on top of Bitcoin, but Bitcoin itself, no one. So it's really the big topic. The security, it has been built with a lot of security elements within the solution. So it's not only about the equation, but really the design is done to be secure first. Third big element, which is also linked to the security, is the resilience. The ability to distribute data, to distribute the processes, so typically with a consensus, and which work in a decentralized way, brings a level of security and so reliability on top of the blockchain that is unique. And that's why you can buy a token on the blockchain, because you know the blockchain is reliable. It will not break in the coming minutes. So that's very important. Fourth point that I will evoke a lot today is the fact that the blockchain is created to be API native and is designed to be automated. So not only by internal procedure like the smart contract, but also by the fact that the blockchain can be orchestrated by any other application on top of it, with asking the blockchain to execute piece of the process. And that's extremely important because when we speak about automation, blockchain can be a fundamental way to change the game. And last one, of course, is the proof. So the tokenization, which is the proof that you own or that you don't own that token and the value of that token. The proof of work, so the proof that you have done something, it's very linked to the immutability, of course, and the proof of identity, but also the ability to prove that you're not someone who can be identified, so the anonymization. So when you take these 5 big topics, at the end, the keyword behind blockchain is trust. We use the blockchain to build trust. And it's because you trust in the blockchain that you can give value for something, that you can use it to automate complex processes. Really, trust is the keyword. So now let's go back to P2P. And first of all, P2P, before I moved to business services, which was 2 years ago, I worked a lot in a lot of classic IT domains. P2P for me was just a far word. So now it became something very important, which is named procure to pay. And it's part of a normal process of the sales, which is you're a company, for instance, you're a big manufacturing company, you plan to build and sell products. And so the first thing you do is you plan what products you need to buy to do them. You are making the contract and you're sourcing the suppliers to be able to do it. Then you will send purchase orders, so you will order the products. You will receive them, so in a good receipt, you will have an invoice linked to that. Once you have the product, of course, it goes to the next step, so to the manufacturing or to the sales if you're a reseller. And then, of course, you will decide to pay the invoice, and that will bring you the reporting that demonstrates what you've done. So P2P is the blue process at the middle. And when you speak about P2P, it is linked to a lot of issues because there are many risks and concerns on every step. So if you look just the PO, the purchase order, I can order something, but I can do a mistake, like not sending that to the right supplier, not putting the right pricing, using a bad quantity, a bad address. I do the PO, but I forgot to send it, or I send it twice. So just the PO itself, it's already a first risk. The invoice is even worse. We receive an invoice, and first of all, the invoice can have not even a PO number. So what does the invoice correspond to? Or simply, there is an invoice because something has been acquired without a PO. So you have to integrate an invoice without a PO. You can receive the invoice twice. You can have, of course, different prices or quantities or even suppliers between the PO and the invoice. You can even receive invoices that are just there as a fraud, asking you to pay something without even the proof and without even having been there to send something. Just you receive a lot of invoices, even as a spam, in your mailboxes, asking you to pay something, and some people is paying. So fraud exists. Goods receipts, it's the proof that you have received what you have ordered. And of course, the good receipt can also be wrong, or simply does not correspond to the PO, or doesn't correspond to the invoice, or does not correspond to any one of it, or just you receive incorrect products, or products that are not in the right way, some defaults, or you received only part of the delivery, or even more delivery, or multiple deliveries. So good receipt is very complex. And of course, invoice and good receipts, one of them can happen first, then the other, or only one of them. So really, there's a big issue here. This is why the fourth step is the matching. You need at the moment to check that everything is correct and corresponds to what has to be done. And then you will go on the payment proposal. And even in the payment proposal, you can have issues because you can try paying a supplier, but you don't have the right IBAN. Or simply the bank has declared that supplier in the blacklist. So you cannot even physically pay him. So even at this step, you can have issues. But when you look at P2P, actually, as a buyer, in front of you, you have the supplier, your partner, you're working with him. And the supplier has a similar process named O2C, order to cash. So the supplier, when he receives the purchase order, will create a sales order to validate inside in this organization that he has the stock, the product is able to deliver, etc. So he creates the sales order. He will send the invoice. he will of course issue the product. And at the end, he will have to check that he's getting paid, because not because you send the invoice that you're getting paid. So the cash recovery process is a very important process in the O2C component. And O2C, as you may imagine, you have also risk and concerns on every step. So you can receive a PO that corresponds to a product that does not exist anymore, or simply from a customer that you don't know, or even from a blacklisted customer because he never paid you. You know, that kind of things. The invoice that you do, you can do a bad invoice. You can make errors in the invoice, forgetting the PO, putting a wrong PO, sending the invoice twice, whatever. Even the good issues, you also have issue there. The recovery process, maybe that's the most important. When are you supposed to be paid, and what is the real price? Because the bigger you are as a supplier to that customer, the more discount conditions you have and the more complex they are. So what is the real price, when you're supposed to be paid, etc., etc. It's always a mistake. And even at the cash level, sometimes you receive money on the bank account, you don't even know who has paid. So you need to reconcile. So really, it's difficult at every step. So when you look at it together, it was already complex with the buyer and the supplier, but actually it's always more complex because you have more parties. First of all, when you buy, sometimes the supplier himself is buying the product from someone else, so it's just a reseller. So it adds twice the level of complexity. All the process of delivery of the goods includes a lot of logistic actors. So typically, what will do DHL in the middle, or the warehouse manager, or etc. So that's a big issue. And at the end, when you want to pay, you have banks who are there, who can also delay, cancel the payment, ask for more information, whatever. And in the middle, when you want to match or do the recovery process, everyone can be involved in the process. You can have the controllers who refuse to pay. You can have the legals who are looking at something on the contract and changing the conditions. You can have the sales who are pushing for that to be done fast, etc. So everyone in the company can be impacted here. So the multiplicity of actors in the P2P process is illustrating the real complexity behind what should be a very easy process. And at the end, when you look at it, you discover that there are some key problems that may be addressed by the blockchain. First of all, it's a paper-led process. So very big number of companies have tried to transform P2P to avoid the paper and to go to digitize things. They cannot avoid it. They can maybe reduce the quantity of paper, but not avoiding it, just because of the way you share data with your supplier. So using the blockchain to share data can, for once, change the game in stopping the paper-led process. Second step, of course, is the process itself, which is inefficient, ERP-based with a lot of manual processes. So there you have the automation, all the processing capability, and then the fact that you use a product which is natively based on APIs and natively built for automation will help a lot. You have a lot of exceptions. I spoke to you about the complex rules of discount, but there are exceptions on dates, on products, on everything. So all of it is creating frictions. So digitizing the contract and all the business rules into rules that are clear and shared is critical. This is where digitizing that and creating smart contracts can once again change the game. You have a lack of visibility issue. As a supplier, you send an invoice, you don't know at all if the invoice has been accepted or not, when you will get paid, etc. So just the fact that that data is visible from both sides will help a lot. So of course, using a ledger in the middle will help a lot on that. Fraud and identity threat. So really making sure that the invoice that you receive corresponds to something that you've ordered from the right supplier with the right amount, etc. So here you have the proof of process and the ID, which is guaranteeing the validity of the invoice and of the good receipt. So that will simplify the process to approve for the payment. And you also have compliance. So for instance, in many countries, you have laws that force you to prove that you're paying your suppliers before X days as average. So the fact that you can have an end-to-end audit trail on the ledger that demonstrates in the process how long you really take to pay can be a real element in compliance. So how do we address it? We have built within Capgemini a product named Blue Catalyst, which is, first of all, an accelerator, which is designed to share data in a structured way between two parties. So for that, we work with a technology named R3 Corda, which is a distributed ledger technology that allows to share data between two parties, while the third party, which is not part of this process, is not at all aware, even that the two first parties are speaking about. So they of course, don't know at all even what data is shared. Which means on Corda, you don't have a unique ledger that is shared by everyone. You have one ledger per party, and each party will have on the ledger all the information that concerns that party, and a transaction that is multi-party. So for instance, a corporate and a supplier we're speaking about, the same transaction will be present in the ledger of both parties. So what we build on top of this technology is a way to share the data in a structured way by using a JSON component that allows to send questions, so typically what PO number, to send answers, my PO is 18, and to attach document to it. And by the way, this is the PDF that corresponds to my PO. And of course, to link a process as a suite of transactions, a chain of transactions that will describe the complete process. So how does it work? Let's take the case of this customer. So the project has been paused 2 months ago by the IT. They were completely drawn out by the COVID impact. But this is what we have designed and implemented. At the bottom, you will see on the left the buyer. So first of all, yeah, it's intercompany. So it's interesting because when you want to have multiple parties speaking together, it's always difficult to create an ecosystem with your suppliers because each supplier is working their own way. And by the way, you're already their customer. If you already start telling them the way they have to work, you immediately see the impact of it. So the product that you do has to be accepted, which means you need to bring value to the supplier. So the first way is to have the buyer, which is in the same group than the supplier. And so they use the product to prove that they can speed up and simplify the process. So in this big group that is global, we have multiple SAP instances. Multiple SAP instances, first of all, because it allows them to have instances per region. That allows to stop the SAP in Asia during the night while you still need to have SAP running in US, but also for historical reasons. You buy and you sell companies, so of course you always will have an heterogeneous system of ERP. So if you take the buyer on the left, this side, what have we built there? You have the SAP of the buyer. On top of it, we put Blue Catalyst, which is some code on Java, and the Corda blockchain, and we integrated SAP with Node.js by using two solutions, API and UiPath. UiPath, it's an RPA tool, so it's designed for automation. Why UiPath also? Because it's not always easy to directly contact the SAP system just because of the impact it may have on production. So this customer is very sensitive in the risk around the ERP. All the business based on the ERP has many customers, but in that case, it's very sensitive. So if you use UiPath, which is simulating a user and a screen accessing SAP, they have all the ways to monitor, control it, and even stop it if they want. API, they don't have yet the full maturity. So only some services are available on API, but for some of them, we need to use UiPath. So that's why we use UiPath and API to make the link between SAP and Blue Catalyst. On the supplier side, you have, of course, the same infrastructure, SAP connected to Blue Catalyst by using UiPath and SAP and API. And the two Corda nodes that represent the two ledgers, as you can see, they speak directly, which means in that example, as a buyer, when I send the PO to the supplier, SAP generates the PO. I will put the PO and the data of the PO, like the PO number, the quantities, the product, the name of the supplier. I will send it from SAP to Blue Catalyst on Java. It will structure it in a JSON. So it will be a JSON and a document because it will store the PDF. It will give it to Corda, store it on the ledger, and create the transaction with the ledger of the supplier. And the supplier, when he will have the document and the JSON that is showing the PO in his Corda node, an event will happen, it will be triggered, it will call a service on Blue Catalyst, and that microservice will be able, through the API or the UI path, to write on SAP who have received a PO from that buyer. Please go to the next step, which will be the sales order. And of course, we have the same AD for both, as we're speaking about the same group. So if I come back to P2P in this process, I quickly spoke about the first step, which is the PO. It has been created by the buyer. It's on Corda. So on Corda, you have the JSON file that contains all the metadata of the PO. You have the PDF that is the physical PO, I will say. It is generated on the SAP of the buyer, and by Corda, it's sent to the SAP of the supplier. Then on the supplier side, you will check that document. You will create the sales order. So you create it on SAP, and this time SAP will write on Corda the metadata of the sales order. So first of all, it means that from the buyer side, you can know that a second step has been created on that chain, so a second transaction that tells you, oh, the sales order has been created, and you can see the metadata of it. Then the supplier will create the invoice. So same thing, you will generate the invoice on SAP. You will send it on Corda, so both the JSON with the information on the invoice that will complete the information of the PO or correct when things have to be changed. We generate the PDF of the invoice, and it will be sent to the SAP of the buyer via Corda. The goods are issued from the supplier, so the supplier will write once again on the ledger that the goods have been sent. And when they're received by the buyer will also write down on SAP that the goods have been received, and that will generate a PO on the ledger. And at the end, when the buyer has checked everything, he will be able to generate the payment. And so he will declare the payment on SAP. You know, that will generate a badge that goes to the bank itself, but before that generation, it will write on the ledger the information that the payment has been requested, for instance, to be paid by end of the month. So at this moment, if you look at the end of the process, as a supplier, you can see the PO details, both the structured data and the JSON. You can see the sales order that you did, the invoice that you sent, and of course, when it has been sent, because everything is time-stamped on the blockchain. You can see the goods issued, the goods received, and the payment proposal. So you have a complete visibility on what has happened. What it has solved. So first of all, on the process, paper-led, inefficient, and the exceptions, we have been able to automate and digitize 60% of the intercompany process. Why 60%? Because big part of the process has still to be done within SAP with the process of SAP, especially many of the exceptions. As you've seen here, I'm just showing a linear process. It can be much more complex with a much more complex chain. Interestingly, the entities were using BMC Patrol to share data between them, which means when the buyer creates a PO, he was copy-pasting about 50 fields of the PO on BMC Patrol. BMC Patrol was transferring the ticket to the supplier, so the internal supplier, who was then opening BMC Patrol and copy-pasting most of the fields on his own SAP. So not only it's not efficient, but behind it, you have 1,200 people consuming a license of BMC Patrol. Just stopping paying 1,200 licenses of BMC Patrol has paid the project, for you to know. What we have not done is we don't use the smart contracts because the business logic stays in SAP. And for now, we don't have external partners. So we start opening the discussion with some selected partners, but really very early stage. And before we deploy it on massive production with all the SAP systems, I don't think we'll do it. Lack of visibility, as you have understood, all data is in the blockchain and can be visible via the Blue Catalyst interface on HTML. What has to be done now is an evolution on SAP so that in the screen of SAP, you can have access to the ledger. So for instance, you open a good receipt on SAP and you can see from that good receipt all the timestamps and all the information that are linked to all the transactions of this chain. So that can really help going faster instead of needing to go back to Blue Catalyst. Fraud, not a problem here. And by the way, even when we'll open to the partners, it will only be selected partners under a permission ledger. So fraud is not the real issue here. Of course, we always need to take care of it, but it's not the big issue. And compliance, data is ready for compliance. And once it will be open to external partners, we'll create the reports that are able to demonstrate it. So if I summarize it very, very, very quickly, the big issue in P2P and O2C, because they go together, is the transparency of data and the data sharing between them. We use blockchain here to solve maybe 80% of the problems, which are bad data, which are we lose the history of the process. So it's very important to understand that we have addressed mainly this point to be solved. And up to now, I think that was demonstrated that it has been solved. And now we start extending it to add more exceptions and access to more and more of the SAP systems of this customer. So I think I did almost the 30 minutes. Maybe there are some questions. Adrien, I don't know if there have been some questions.
Yes. Thanks a lot, Manuel, for this presentation. We do have some questions, so don't hesitate to push your question within the chat or the Q&A panel. The first question is, in this example, ERP system or SAP on both sides, is it also easy to set up if ERP are different on each side?
Yes, because it's only the API connectivity or the UiPath connectivity that will be different. So for instance, for this customer, one company that has been acquired recently is based on Oracle. So we'll have to do the integration with Oracle. It has already been designed at high level. It has not been done, but I don't think it will be an issue.
Okay, thanks. Another question around what is the order of magnitude of investment for such a project?
I will not speak about price on this call. Sorry, very sorry about it. But to give you an idea, it's a 4 months project that has been done. So we started late last year to reach that step.
Okay. Another question about the small actors. How complex would it be to digitize a small actor in this process?
Small actor?
Small actors, yes.
No, it's not an issue at all, because if we speak about the small actors within the group, it's not an issue. They're all on SAP. If we speak about external actors who maybe don't even have SAP, small suppliers, yeah. Then the goal is not to do the physical integration with their ERP, but just to propose on a portal that will be provided directly by Blue Catalyst, the screens that allow them to access to the purchase order and the ability to upload their own invoice, for instance. So it's just about proposing them an HTML screen without any integration. So small actors will only have that, and big actors who really want to automate on their side, they will need to really be able to put some APIs or some automation processes to be more efficient. So it's important because the automation and the technical link on the side on top of the blockchain is only here to improve the time to market and the efficiency of the project. Is not mandatory. Otherwise, we would have never been able to address some of the customers.
Okay, thank you. Another question around the question of ecosystem within the supply chain. How will it work if we gather only a part of the supplier network around such a platform? Okay,
it's a very good question, because this is why we decided from the beginning to keep the business logic on SAP side, because it has never been a target to replace the way it works and to do it differently. It has been a target to automate part of the process when it's done. So if you're able to automate, first of all, the intercompany that is representing among 20% of the purchase activities, just to give you an idea. And if we are able to have in the ecosystem there the main suppliers. Maybe 40 to 50% of the P2P process can be highly automated, which you immediately see not only the cost reduction of it, but also the ability to have a much better control on what happens with these key actors and the ability to spend more quality time with the other suppliers. So, which means, I think it's very important to understand, we are not here to put the blockchain to decommission the current system. We put the blockchain to automate, so to make it more efficient. And by the way, for you to know, this company is also working in putting SAP Central Finance, so that will change some of the links. But the fact that SAP Central Finance will be here will not at all change what we're doing. It will only maybe simplify some of the processes in terms of financial codes and whatever. But really, the way we have done it is not to disrupt the way it's done, it's to improve the way it's done. So it's only helping. So the more partners you will have that are adopting the solution, the faster you will go and the more efficient you will be. It's not about making it mandatory.
Okay, thanks a lot, Manuel. This was the last question, and we run over time, so we will close here. Thanks a lot. Thanks to you all, the participants for attending this webcast, and hope to see you next week for the last webcast within this series around the securization of IoT devices.
Thank you, everyone, and you have my coordinates if you want to know more. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.